Everyone tells you the same thing: read 50 books a year. Warren Buffett reads 500 pages daily. Bill Gates finishes 50 titles annually. Elon Musk learned rocket science from books. The message pounds into your skull: read more, succeed more, compound your knowledge like interest in a bank account. But here's what nobody mentions. The most successful entrepreneurs in history ignored half the titles on those viral reading lists. They skipped the bestsellers everyone swears by. They threw popular advice in the trash. And they built empires anyway. What did they refuse to read? What knowledge did they deliberately avoid? And why does ignoring certain books make you more likely to succeed? Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from the Heavy Chef Foundation's 2024 Entrepreneur Research Study published in March 2024, which surveyed over 500 South African entrepreneurs about their reading habits, and Rob Walling's analysis published in February 2025 on startup founder productivity, documenting why traditional business books waste founder time. These aren't generic sources. These are deep industry studies that track what actually moves the needle. Now back to the information. Built to last. Getting to Plan B. The new business road test. Business model generation. Books every MBA program assigns. Books every accelerator recommends. And his conclusion after building actual companies? They're useless for 95% of founders. Why? Because they're written for Sony, for Procter & Gamble, for Panasonic, for corporations with 8 zeros in their market cap. Not for you sitting in a coffee shop trying to validate a minimum viable product with $3,000 in the bank. The knowledge that you need 10,000 hours to master a subject doesn't help you ship version 1. The theory that certain trends become viral after the 412th person adopts them sounds smart at a cocktail party. It does nothing for your conversion rate. Gladwell writes for people who want to feel informed, not for people who need to build. Got starstruck. But here's his advice for entrepreneurs reading Godin's books. Don't. Read a detailed review instead. Listen to a 30-minute interview. You'll extract every salient point. The only thing you miss? Copious examples. Godin's last 3 books? Walling got everything he needed from reviews. Same with Gladwell's previous 2 titles. Works perfectly. Because these books are television for entrepreneurs. They're entertaining. They're comforting. They make you feel productive when you're actually procrastinating. Because 41% of entrepreneurs surveyed never or rarely read books that shape them as business owners. Not because they're lazy, because they learned the hard truth. Execution beats reading. Meeting customers beats case studies about customers. Shipping a product beats reading about product development. Action compounds. Books about action don't. Number 1, The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. Wait, isn't this a Bible for digital nomads? Didn't it launch a movement? Yes, and that's precisely the problem. Ron Gabori, entrepreneur and creative director at Idea Booth, published his analysis in Inc. magazine in February 2018. He read The 4-Hour Workweek. He studied Ferriss's behavior. Here's what he found. Ferriss records 3 to 4 hours of podcast content weekly. His peers report he works at least 40 hours per week. Just like you. Just like everyone else actually building something real. Cool semantic trick. Useless for a founder grinding through customer support tickets at midnight. The book sells you on working smart instead of hard. But if you're young or just starting, you need both. There's no shortcut. Rob Walling confirms this. The advice in the 4-Hour Workweek is outdated by 2022. The tactics don't scale. The lifestyle design framework falls apart when you're trying to find product market fit. You can't outsource your way out of understanding your customers. But he explains it perfectly in his TED Talk. 18 minutes? Free. The book? 256 pages, $13. What do you gain from the extra 256 pages? Repetition. Examples that don't add actionable insight. Padding. Successful entrepreneurs watch the TED Talk, skip the book, save 12 hours, use those hours to talk to customers. Gabori dissects this one too. The book introduces perspectives on deconstructing how fads become fads. Interesting enough, but it's not a methodology. There's nothing actionable. The core ideas won't help entrepreneurs, leaders, or marketers, because the best strategy is never about breaking through the viral formula. Fads leave as quickly as they arrive. Success comes from being attentive to trends, not from understanding theoretical tipping points. Gladwell dresses up concepts with interesting stories and cool-sounding social science. But for someone trying to build a sustainable business, it's intellectual entertainment, nothing more. At some point, you need to lift the weight. Nitin Kamath, founder of Zerodha, one of India's largest trading platforms, told researcher Diksha Dutta in 2016 that he doesn't believe in reading books. He learns from personal experiences and meeting new people. His company, thriving. Same period, Paras Chopra, founder of Wingify, read 80 books per year. His company, also thriving. Both approaches work. The difference? Kamath recognized that books were giving him diminishing returns. He needed direct experience. Or you can ship something and learn from real users in real time. One path takes 6 months, the other takes 3 days. Guess which one successful founders choose? And they're nearly useless for early-stage founders. Rob Walling read them during paternity leave. His reaction? This information would be helpful if I needed to generate a huge business plan to impress a business school professor. That's it. The books are weighed down with theory. They speak to markets measured with 8 zeros or more. They analyze companies like Sony deciding whether to enter the television market in 1954. You're not Sony, you're trying to get 10 paying customers by Friday. Good to great won't help you. The case studies are fascinating. The research is rigorous. But it's research on mature companies transitioning from good to great. You haven't even achieved good yet. You're still figuring out if anyone wants your product. Reading about how Fortune 500 companies optimize their organizational culture is academic masturbation when you're a team of 2 people working from a kitchen table. The book gave you 0 actionable tactics, but it consumed 12 hours you could have spent talking to users. The skills don't transfer. The advice doesn't apply. Reading about Jack Welch's management philosophy at General Electric doesn't teach you how to write cold emails that get responses. Lists of entrepreneur reading recommendations include it automatically, and it's mostly useless. The book promotes positive thinking and visualization, the law of attraction before the law of attraction became a phrase. Hill claims that desire plus faith plus specialized knowledge plus organized planning equals success. Sounds nice? Evidence? Thin? Actionable steps? Vague? Time cost? High. Carl Hughes, founder who's read hundreds of entrepreneurship books, revisited Think and Grow Rich recently. His assessment? The book offers generic motivational advice. It doesn't provide the tactical step-by-step guidance founders need. When you're trying to decide between freemium and paid upfront pricing models, Napoleon Hill's thoughts on desire and faith don't move the needle. You need data. You need cohort analysis. You need conversations with customers who've tried both models. Hill's book occupies mental space that could be filled with actionable information. Fourth, books that make you feel productive without making you more productive. Fifth, books that could be summarized in a blog post but got stretched to 200 pages for publishing economics. They read annual reports, shareholder letters, industry analyses, competitor research, customer feedback, market reports, technical documentation, things that directly impact decisions they need to make this week. Not inspirational stories about how Steve Jobs thought differently. On nonfiction in specific areas, business, science, technology, public health. They're especially drawn to biographies and autobiographies. Not because these books are inspirational, because they contain specific decision-making frameworks from people who faced similar situations. Warren Buffett reads biographies to understand how leaders thought through specific challenges, not to feel motivated, to steal their thinking process. Let's get tactical. Successful entrepreneurs skip inspirational business books and read 3 types of material instead. First, technical books specific to their industry. If you're building a software company, you read software engineering books, not general management theory. If you're in biotech, you read scientific papers on your specific area, not broad advice on innovation. Specificity matters. Generic advice is worthless because it has to work for everyone, which means it's optimized for no one. He doesn't give you theoretical frameworks. He tells you what happened when he had to fire his friend, or when his company nearly collapsed, or when he had to make a decision with incomplete information. That's useful. That transfers. Books about cognitive biases like Thinking, Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. Books about influence and persuasion like Influence by Robert Cialdini. These books teach you how humans actually make decisions, not how you wish they made decisions. That knowledge compounds because it applies everywhere. Those books become popular because they're easy to read and make people feel good, not because they're tactically useful for builders. This is the core insight successful entrepreneurs understand. Popularity is a signal of entertainment value, not educational value. A book can be a terrible use of your time and still sell 1 million copies. In fact, the correlation might be inverse. The easier a book is to consume, the less likely it forces you to think hard or change behavior. But here's what the data doesn't show, what those high earners are reading. Are they reading best-selling business books, or are they reading technical manuals, industry reports, and scientific papers? That's the key distinction. Entertainment reading and educational reading occupy different categories. Successful entrepreneurs understand this instinctively. They're not judging books by whether they're enjoyable. They're judging by whether the time invested produces actionable insight. Once you've learned the fundamentals, every additional business book has diminishing returns. You'd be better off reading about history, psychology, science, philosophy, fields that expand your mental models without trying to give you direct business advice. Why? Because business books try to extract rules from specific situations, but business is contextual. What worked for Steve Jobs at Apple won't work for you. What worked for Jeff Bezos at Amazon won't transfer to your industry. Science teaches you how to reason from first principles. Philosophy teaches you how to question assumptions. These skills transfer everywhere. They make you a better thinker, which makes you a better entrepreneur. Reading another book about Steve Jobs' management philosophy, that makes you better at quoting Steve Jobs, nothing more. Average reading time per book, 8 to 10 hours. Total time investment, 416 to 520 hours annually. That's 10 to 13 full work weeks. What could you accomplish with 10 additional work weeks? You could talk to 200 potential customers. You could ship 3 new features. You could test 20 different marketing channels. You could hire and onboard 2 employees. All of those activities would teach you more about your specific business than 52 books about other people's businesses. More value than an hour of testing marketing copy? For most business books, the answer is no. They might provide intellectual stimulation. They might make you feel like you're working, but they don't move your business forward. Will immediately improve every customer conversation you have for the rest of your career. ROI? Infinite. That's the standard. If a book can't clear that bar, skip it. Your time is the most valuable resource you have. Successful entrepreneurs protect it ruthlessly. Your co-founder wants to discuss Crossing the Chasm, and you feel behind if you haven't read them. This is where weak founders cave to social pressure. Strong founders politely ignore it. They recognize that reading popular books is often about signaling, not learning. People want to be part of the conversation. They want to reference the same frameworks everyone else references. It makes them feel connected to the startup community. But connection to the community doesn't build your company. Understanding your customers builds your company. Shipping features builds your company. Iterating based on data builds your company. Reading what everyone else reads makes you think like everyone else thinks. That's the opposite of competitive advantage. You want proprietary insights, not consensus opinions. Proprietary insights come from direct experience with your market, not from reading the same books as every other founder. But by 2025, every founder knows these concepts, every accelerator teaches them, every investor expects you to use them. Reading the book at this point teaches you nothing your peer group doesn't already know. It's hygiene, not advantage. That might mean reading academic papers from researchers studying your industry. That might mean reading technical documentation for tools that could give you an edge. That might mean reading books from adjacent industries that haven't been translated to your field yet. The key is importing insights from places your competitors aren't looking. Not business fiction like The Goal or The Phoenix Project. Actual fiction, novels, literature. Why? Because fiction builds empathy and understanding of human nature in ways business books never can. Business books try to reduce human behavior to frameworks. Fiction shows you the messy complexity of how people actually think and feel and make decisions. That understanding helps you build better products, write better marketing copy, and manage teams more effectively. But it's indirect. It doesn't feel like productivity. So most founders skip it in favor of books with business in the title. These books are wildly popular. They promise to make you more efficient. And they're mostly procrastination in disguise. Why? Because reading about productivity is not being productive. It's fantasizing about being productive. Successful entrepreneurs don't read productivity books. They implement 1 or 2 simple systems and stick to them. The average person who reads a productivity book implements 0 techniques from it long term. They might try something for a week or 2, then they revert to old habits. Meanwhile, they've spent 10 hours reading about productivity instead of just doing the work. This is the productivity paradox. Thinking about how to be more productive makes you less productive. Successful entrepreneurs understand this. They use simple systems, calendar blocking, email batching, delegation frameworks, and ignore the endless parade of productivity books promising to revolutionize their workflow. That's it. Reading about the science of habit formation is interesting. Forming an actual habit is useful. Founders who succeed do the latter. Founders who fail do the former and feel productive while accomplishing nothing. Every hour reading about startups is an hour not learning from your actual startup. Every hour reading about customer development is an hour not actually talking to customers. Every hour reading about product market fit is an hour not testing whether your product fits your market. The learning from direct experience is higher resolution, faster feedback, and more specific to your situation than any book can provide. This doesn't mean successful entrepreneurs are ignorant. It means they're selective. When they encounter a specific problem, they seek out specific information. Customer churn too high? Read about retention strategies? Hiring process broken? Read about recruiting. Pricing unclear? Read case studies about pricing models. Problem first, book second. Never book first, problem eventually. That's the key distinction. They pull information when needed, not push information into their brain hoping it becomes relevant later. From direct feedback. After 2 years, which founder has built a better business? The evidence overwhelmingly favors founder B. Because founder B has 2 years of hard-won specific knowledge about their market. Founder A has theoretical knowledge about markets in general. They force founders to talk to 100 potential customers in the first month. They require weekly shipping of new product iterations. They demand evidence of validated learning, not summaries of books read. Because they've realized what successful entrepreneurs already know, reading about entrepreneurship is not entrepreneurship. It's preparation for entrepreneurship. And there's a time limit on preparation before it becomes procrastination. The timing matters too. Early in your entrepreneurial journey, reading widely makes sense. You're building mental models. You're learning vocabulary. You're understanding how businesses work at a fundamental level. But after you've read 10 or 20 business books, you have the mental models. Additional books provide diminishing marginal returns. You're better off getting direct experience and reading adjacent fields to expand your thinking. This explains the reading habits of senior entrepreneurs. They read less about business as they gain experience. Warren Buffett reads annual reports and newspapers, not business books about annual reports and newspapers. He's reading primary sources. Bill Gates reads about science, history, and technology, not about how other CEOs run their companies. He already knows how to run a company. He's looking for insights that expand his worldview, not tactics he can copy from someone else's playbook. But did they actually use Thiel's framework to build a monopoly business? Probably not. They just enjoyed thinking about the concept. That's fine for them. It's terrible advice for you if you take their recommendation seriously. Problem: that carries weight. If someone who's never built anything recommends the same book because it was inspiring, that's a signal to skip it. The difference is proof. Operators have proof the ideas work. Readers have proof the ideas sound good. You can read 10 books about fundraising, or you can send 50 cold emails to investors and learn what actually resonates. You can read 5 books about hiring, or you can interview 30 candidates and learn what questions reveal true ability. The feedback from doing is immediate, specific, and actionable. The feedback from reading is delayed, general, and theoretical. They stop viewing reading as the primary way to learn. They start viewing reading as one of many learning methods, often not the best one. Want to learn about pricing? Talk to 10 customers about what they'd pay. Want to learn about positioning? Write 10 different value propositions and test them. Want to learn about market fit? Ship a minimal product and watch how people actually use it. These methods are faster and more accurate than reading case studies about other companies in different markets at different times. Books can accelerate that process slightly by showing you how other people thought through similar decisions. But they can't replace the experience of making the decision yourself and living with the outcome. You worry investors will think you're not serious if you haven't read them. You stress about missing something important. This is FOMO, fear of missing out, applied to reading, and it's a trap that weak founders fall into. While everyone else is implementing advice from the lean startup, you could be using completely different methodology that works better for your specific market. While everyone else is trying to build monopolies like Peter Thiel suggests, you could be building a profitable niche business that generates better returns. 37% of entrepreneurs say reading books contributed most to their development. That sounds high until you realize it means 63% attribute their development to something else. And among the 37%, many are likely experiencing survivorship bias. They succeeded and attribute it to reading, but maybe they would have succeeded anyway because they're smart and hardworking. The real question isn't whether reading helps. It's whether reading helps more than alternative uses of that time. And for most founders, most of the time, the answer is no. Talking to customers helps more. Building product helps more. Testing marketing channels helps more. Managing cash flow helps more. Hiring the right people helps more. Reading about how other people did those things? Distant 6th place at best. Let's quantify this differently. Imagine you have 10 hours per week for learning. How should you allocate it? Most people default to reading because it feels productive and comfortable, but the optimal allocation probably looks like this. 2 hours reading about your specific technical domain. 1 hour reading about adjacent fields for novel insights. 3 hours conducting customer interviews and market research. 4 hours experimenting with new tactics and measuring results. That allocation maximizes learning because it balances information intake with practical application. Founders who've read everything about growth hacking but have never run a single A/B test. Founders who know all the frameworks but can't execute any of them. Reading without doing is entertainment. Doing without reading is reckless. The combination is what works. When they hit a problem, they research solutions. They don't stockpile information hoping it becomes relevant. This just-in-time learning is far more efficient than just-in-case learning. Just-in-case learning fills your brain with information that mostly decays before you use it. Just-in-time learning solves actual problems you're facing right now. This brings us to the final category of books successful entrepreneurs ignore. Books about entrepreneurship itself. Books like The E-Myth Revisited. Books about startup culture. Books that are essentially long-form inspirational content. Why skip these? Because if you're an entrepreneur, you're already doing entrepreneurship. You don't need to read about the concept. You need tactical information about specific aspects of your business. Reading general information about entrepreneurship is like reading general information about sports when you're trying to master tennis. It's too broad to be useful. If the answer is specific, I need to understand how to structure a sales team. I need to learn how to negotiate with vendors. I need to figure out cap table mechanics. Then they find the most specific technical resource on that topic. Often, that's not a best-selling business book. It's a boring technical manual that nobody recommends because it's not entertaining. Research shows that entrepreneurs who read to solve specific problems have better outcomes than entrepreneurs who read to feel informed. The difference is intent. Problem-solving reading has a clear success metric. Did this help me solve the problem? General reading has no metric except feeling smart. Successful entrepreneurs optimize for outcomes, not feelings. So they read less and do more. Let's talk about the phenomenon of productivity theater. Many founders read business books because it feels like work. They're learning, they're improving themselves, they're investing in their future success. But they're not actually building their business. They're preparing to build their business. There's a difference. And past a certain point, preparation becomes avoidance. You're reading about fundraising instead of actually talking to investors. You're reading about marketing instead of actually testing ads. You're reading about hiring instead of actually interviewing candidates. This is uncomfortable because reading feels safer than doing. Books don't reject you. Customers might. Books don't fail. Products might. Books don't waste money. Marketing tests might. But that discomfort is precisely why doing teaches more than reading. You're exposing yourself to real consequences, which forces real learning. Every customer conversation is a chapter. Every product iteration is a section. You're writing the most valuable business book for your specific situation in real time. And unlike published books, this one is perfectly tailored to your market, your customers, your constraints, and your strengths. No published book can match that relevance. External information is general. Internal information is specific. General information is cheap and abundant. Specific information is expensive and rare. Reading gives you cheap general information. Doing gives you expensive specific information. And businesses are built on expensive specific information, not cheap general information. They talk to customers daily. They analyze data weekly. They experiment constantly. They hire carefully. They focus intensely on the few things that matter and ignore everything else. They read when they have a specific question, not because reading is what successful entrepreneurs are supposed to do. They're empirical, not ideological. They care about results, not best practices. If you're reading popular business books, you're probably procrastinating. If you're buying books everyone recommends, you're probably following instead of leading. If you're trying to read 50 books per year because Warren Buffett does, you're copying tactics without understanding context. And if you think reading will make you a successful entrepreneur, you've already lost. Reading might make you knowledgeable. Only building makes you successful. The marginal value of reading a new business book approaches zero. The marginal value of talking to your customers remains infinite. But past that point, the correlation reverses. The highest earners read less than moderately successful people. Why? Because they figured out that their time is worth too much to spend on books that don't directly impact decisions. They're selective to the point of being extreme. They read annual reports of companies they're analyzing. They don't read books about how to analyze companies. They read scientific papers about their industry. They don't read books about innovation. Primary sources, not secondary sources. Data, not interpretation. Information is worthless until it's applied. And the application is always more valuable than the information. Always.